Making excuses.
What are you, Max?
Why would you open up the window for that to let them just jump in and jump on you like that? That's unbelievable.
Look at this.
Coach him up, coach.
I mean, you gotta say, let's go. Hey,
no,
forget about making excuses.
Seth,
yesterday was a struggle or something.
Obviously, Seth Greenberg's here with us. No, but he's openly flaunting his seniority. That's 2 days in a row with no tie. You set the rules. You live up to them, Stephen A.
Well, I don't have to, first of all. Secondly, I had a late night because I had to host a banquet last night and be a keynote speaker, rather. And number three, and more importantly,
humble brag.
And number three, and more importantly, I look pretty damn good without the tie. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with that.
I got to quit. Aren't you running the show? Are you the point guard today?
Thank you,
He's
sir.
not. He's not running the show,
If you're the point guard today, will you take control of the show, please?
He's a rookie.
I got a coach. I got an overpriced veteran, and I'm the point guard.
Killing your salary cap.
And a humble superstar.
And a humble superstar. Thank you, Max. All right, the Sweet 16 got underway last night, and the Kentucky Wildcats were eliminated by Kansas State in a close one. Kentucky finishes the year 26-11, and after the game, Coach Cal said it was still a good year.
Came together for me to see Jared in, Jared out, all the stuff that went on with injuries, and they hung in there and played a bunch of freshmen. I mean, I thought they really performed.
Max.
Yep.
Should Kentucky be satisfied with this job that Calipari did with the team this year?
Nope. And look, Calipari is a great coach and a great recruiter, and he practically invented one and done, right? But, you know, you got to go from that to 3-and-D. That's the way the game is right now. It's the way you win, and at the pros and really at any level. Look, he's missed out on the space and the pace and space, right? Like, that's not the kind of team he recruits, and partly that's because he is such a great recruiter that he's recruiting. You know, and what does that mean? You're recruiting? It means you're recruiting the best athletes usually who play the game, and at that stage out of high school, many of them are not yet efficient shooters. They will get to be better shooters, but many of the best high school recruits aren't great shooters. And in a one-and-done situation, what you wind up with is not only young players, but young players who don't shoot the ball particularly well, particularly when Duke is good at recruiting some of those guys. And so Calipari, I think, was out-recruited by Duke, and then maybe again this upcoming season. And the kind of players he gets don't fit into the kind of game that he needs to be able to play with one-and-dones. And I say all this understanding that I am holding him not to the standard of a normal coach, because he's not a normal coach. He's a great coach. I'm holding him, including to the recruiting standards, to Calipari standards, to the standards you expect from him. The kind of guys he gets and the kind of coach he is, he will make noise every year. You'll look at Kentucky and go, oh, they're live every year. But the difference between that and actually winning, given the style of play, given the length of commitments, is different. And he may have to tweak a little bit what he's doing.
Max, I'll tell you one thing. You are so far off, it's absolutely ridiculous. First of all, there's been 4 Final Fours, 2 championship games. Every single freshman class has its own identity, and that's what coaching is, putting those guys in position to play to their strengths. Is he disappointed? He's disappointed that his team didn't win. But you know what? You've got to look at what he did with this basketball team. He took the youngest team in college basketball. In the middle of the season, we didn't even know they were going to make the NCAA tournament. All right? And all of a sudden, at the end of the season, we're expecting them to get to the Final Four with that basically in the bracket they were in. But it has nothing to do with style of play, because the thing about John Calipari is each and every year he changes his style of play.
Yep.
He fits his system to his personnel. Look at the development of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Look at the development of Kevin Knox, shot fake and put it on the floor. It's hard to get to the Final Four every year. By the way, we've seen Duke go out in the first round. We've seen Kansas go out in the first and second round. UCLA hasn't been to the Final Four in forever. Those schools have a pretty good history. Indiana, by the way, they've got a good tradition. They've changed coaches, and that guy's had pretty good success. So I think what happens is expectation gets unrealistic. Getting to the Final Four is not that easy. Are they disappointed? Sure, those Kentucky fans are disappointed. Is Cal disappointed? Without a doubt. But let's not talk about the system and the style of play and all those cliches, space and pace, 3D players and all that BS. Because you know what? That's a bunch of BS. You take the team you have, you recruit players that you think can fit, that will play hard, that want to come to Kentucky, that have a dream of being one and done, that have a chance to get to the league, and then you figure out a system to put them in position to be successful. This year he did that, maybe not at the level because he played a Kansas State team that was tougher, more mature, and you know what? It was just not their day. But when we say, like, the system, come on, enough of the system stuff,
Okay,
please.
go ahead, Stephen A. Go, and then I'm going to get it, Coach.
Oh, I'm ready.
Well, Coach, first of all, listen, you're right about all the things that you're saying about the greatness of John Calipari. But what I would say to you is that gives us more of a license to be disappointed, because I stand here today as somebody disappointed. And I'm going to tell you where my qualifications come from, Coach. I covered John Calipari when he was at UMass, and he were in the A-10 because I was the beat writer for Temple University and John Chaney. That's how far back John Calipari and I go. Bruiser Flint is a personal friend and a brother of mine, okay? I go way, way back with all of these guys. And I'm telling you right now, I'm very disappointed in John Calipari. You are absolutely right. Let's throw schematics all out of the equation. I'm not trying to question anything about his coaching acumen, because clearly the man is an exceptional coach. This is a guy, look at Kentucky, he's won 81% of his games. At UMass, it was 73% of his games. At Memphis, it was 78.5% of his games. He's gone to 2 national title games. He's won a national championship. He's gone to 4 Final Fours. But this man has been coaching for a very long time, and almost every year he has one of, if not the top recruiting class in the nation. And he's got 1 national championship to show for it. That's problematic number. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, Coach, I say this to you in all fun and jest, and I'd say this to John Calipari if I showed up on one of his podcasts again and he and I had this conversation. Are you not tired of the act, of the old cliches that he throws out there? Oh, we're horrible. Oh, we're going to get our butts kicked. Oh, we've got to get it together. It's the same old stuff every single year, and then all of a sudden they lose at some point in a tournament, and then he's going to sit up there and say, it's on me, it's my bad, I made the mistake, I should have called that timeout with 19 seconds left, that was on me, it was my fault, I'm proud of these guys. Well, damn it, maybe you should try a new strategy, saying something else for a change instead of the same old stuff.
What, is he supposed to throw him under the bus? I mean, look, he took accountability. That's a good thing.
Hold on, Coach. Stay with me, Coach. What I'm saying to you is this. It's the same old stuff. You know this better than me, because you not only are a student of the game of basketball, you're a teacher of the game of basketball. There can come a time where you get tired of hearing the same voice with the same old song and dance. And John Calipari, I'm not talking about his coaching. I'm not talking about his recruiting. I'm talking about his verbiage during a season while his team is playing. We're hearing the same old stuff. He needs to get with some kind of motivational speaker, come up with a different tactic or whatever the case may be, because I'm tired of hearing the same old stuff come out of his mouth when they're playing, and then when they lose, we hear something else. It's gotten old. I'm sick of it. I know he was starting 5 freshmen, but at some moment in time, John Calipari, the great John Calipari, the great recruiter, the great coach, has 1 national championship with all of these great recruiting classes, and the only person that delivered a title for him was Anthony Davis. I have a problem with that because I expect more from John Calipari.
Do you guys think, like, national championships grow on trees? I mean, like,
I know.
other guys are trying to win national championships. You don't think Kansas is trying to win one? You don't think Duke?
But other guys
UCLA,
have more than
Indiana?
Calipari.
Yeah, one guy has more than Calipari.
Coach,
do they recruit like Calipari?
Coach, you
real quick to lay that out. Let's put the numbers on that, because I think Stephen A. makes a great point. Throw out, okay, if you don't like the 3-and-D language, you don't like the schematic language, let's talk about the language that you, Coach, brought up, standards and expectations. Stephen A. points out, Calipari has 1, Roy Williams has
2.
3, Jim Calhoun has 3, Mike Krzyzewski has 5. The question is this, is he in that class? Does he have to live up to those expectations?
Well, when you're at UMass and you're at Memphis, you're not competing on a level playing field. When you're at Kentucky, obviously more is expected of you. But
Don't give me the
it's
schools,
hard
Coach.
to win at.
Don't give me the schools. Give me the players. He had Derrick Rose.
Other guys
he had
have
Chris
dudes.
Douglas Roberts.
What do you think? Other guys don't have dudes?
Let me answer the question. I want to get a coach about this. I think the answer will be when Calipari is, when all is said and done, yes, he is in the class with anyone except for maybe Coach K, right? And my point, Coach, about saying space and pace, 3-and-D, and that you're saying is BS, which you are very wrong about. It wouldn't be the first time. The point is, that he is so great at recruiting, and he anticipated the one-and-done thing and pioneered in a way. He was out in front of it, so he has a dilemma. He has a problem. He knows he's going to get these guys for a year. He wants the best players, and given the way the game is going, and you're absolutely right, part of his brilliance as a coach is he doesn't force a round peg into a square hole, right? He tailors the coaching approach or the scheme to his personnel. And my point is, as a recruiter now, he has to tweak that and go after some personnel sometimes who maybe aren't the best athlete, but can shoot a little more. Because the reason they lost, let's cut through all the BS, they can't shoot it this year. That's really the problem.
They did the last 5 games, pal.
Let's move on from the blue blood of the tournament to the Cinderella of the tournament. Last night, 11 seed Loyola Chicago beat Nevada by 1 point to advance. So, already in the Elite Eight, we have an 11 seed and 2 9 seeds. Is this good for the tournament to have all these low-seeded teams left, Stephen A?
No. And listen, I'm not trying to say that it's not good to have a Cinderella. I'm saying when there's several of them, it's problematic for the game because, listen, there's a marquee for a reason. There are billboards and jumbotrons for reasons. There are tickers circulating around Madison Square Garden and the Madison Square Gardens of the basketball world for a reason. Because when you have marquee, when you have individuals to market, that heightens and elevates the suspense of it all. Again, I want to emphasize, I am not totally against Cinderellas. Cinderellas are great. That's what makes March Madness fantastic. I'm not saying that you don't want them at all. I'm saying the abundance of them at the expense of the powerhouses is when it becomes a problem. If you got Butler sneaking into the Final Four years ago and they're going up against the Dukes of North Carolinas or something like that, we get all of that. And, of course, Duke still exists. Kansas still exists. Villanova still exists. We get all of that. But when you see an abundance of dudes, the Nevadas against the Loyolas of Chicago or whatever the case may be, I think the more you see of that, the more it highlights what the game is lacking in terms of marquee talent, because you're thinking about folks that are on the NBA level that you would prefer to see in college. I'm not talking about one of them. I'm talking about when there are several of them. I don't think that's a good thing for the college basketball game.
You would be right if it was all David versus David. You want David versus Goliath, Stephen A.
Right.
And so Loyola and Nevada, I understand, although I found that interesting. Look, Cinderella versus Cinderella. Which one is going to win? That was still interesting. But look at the way this is breaking down. On one side of the bracket, you're talking Florida State, Kansas State, Loyola, right? On the other side of the bracket, Nova, Kansas, Duke. I mean, it's not just that you have plenty of blue bloods left. It's that they're on one side of the bracket, by and large, and you know, Goliath and David's on the other side of the bracket, meaning as this plays out, it's not certain, of course, but there's a very good chance. The odds are in the favor of David versus Goliath in the finals. That is exactly what you want. So maybe it's partly just luck that it's worked out this way with the brackets, but so far it has. And I love it. It's great for the game.
Are you guys calling Florida State and Michigan Cinderella? Because you could end up with either Florida State or Michigan, Villanova and Kansas or Duke. Those aren't Cinderella, all right? Yes, Loyola is Cinderella. There's no doubt about it. You know, just that the upper part of that bracket, you know, is going to be an anomaly. But we're not going to really have Cinderella. You're talking about an ACC team, a Big Ten team, a team that won the Big Ten tournament. Florida State, a team with a bunch of pros. So your 3 of the 4 are probably going to end up programs that, you know what, are at the very highest level. And, you know, that's good for college basketball. I go back to the NASCAR concept. You're going to watch those guys go round and round. You want to see your blue bloods win, but you want to see a couple crashes.
Hey, Coach.
We had a crash in the South. That's just the way it is. So that's good. And the other thing is good. Different styles of basketball, different ways to build programs. It just shows you can have transfers and win. You can have a defensive-oriented team that can win. I mean, Kansas State in the
Coach,
Big 12 and Loyola, that's not the worst thing in the world when you look at what else is going to be in the tournament.
31 wins this year, by the way.
Coach, let me get on you for a second, Coach,
Sure.
because I must confess, you know you're my man. I love you, but you get on my nerves sometimes, and I say that affectionately. And I'm going to tell you why you get. I'm going to tell you why you get on my nerves, because you know what the truth is here. First, obviously, there are teams that are still playing that exist. We're just talking about the overall premise. Let's face reality. Loyola Chicago is a nice story. But I don't want to see them against Kansas State. I want to see them against somebody else. I want something like that. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about the popularity of the sport, let me tell you something right now. Seth Greenberg knows his basketball. But even though he knows his basketball, and I believe you can coach, one of the greatest reasons that people need to look at you is because we've learned that you got a great personality, too, that can really, really resonate with a younger generation of players. If I'm a program, I'm looking at Seth Greenberg right now because I love what I see from him on ESPN. What I'm saying is when you watch college basketball, damn it, don't you remember Lou Carnesecca? Don't you remember John Thompson? Don't you still see Jim Boeheim? Don't you miss Bobby Knight a little bit? Don't you look at Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and then some of the players that they recruit? John Calipari, for example, his personality, as much as it's getting on my nerves because the message has gotten old and he needs to modify it a little bit, I still love the man dearly and I want to see him. What I'm saying is these things that contribute to selling the game of college basketball, I don't believe that a bunch of Cinderellas should be, you should favor that compromising, that marquee. And I'm not saying it's actually happening. I'm saying that's not what we should wish for. Sure, we want some of them to sift in there, but we want those marquee names too, because marquee sells with anything. And First Take is a perfect example of it, because your boy is right here on First Take. That's why we sell, baby. That's why we sell.
And you don't even have to wear a tie.
And damn sure ain't because of that rookie hosting the show. I can tell you that.
That's an overpriced. So I understand where that shot came from because Lord knows you're not overpriced. You're the star of the show. You're the star of the network, my friend.
There we go.
But you make a really good point, Seth. Look, I've made this argument on First Take, right? Stars sell. Stars sell in TV, dramas, comedies, talk shows, and sports. It's why I've said, by the way, the Dallas Cowboys are so necessary in the NFL. You know it's
don't storylines
sell.
So wait a second. Intriguing storylines tell. Don't sometimes people watch a show because, you know, it's interesting. There's a storyline. It's different. It's not what we've seen
you're
before.
Right. Coaches,
and you know what?
We're
right seeing
here.
a Final Four potentially that we've not seen before. It's a different story. It's new. It's fresh. We don't know anything about. Look at Sister Jean. She's a star. I mean, we've created this star, and that's an intriguing story. If she makes it to the Final Four,
but not only that. Hold on, Coach. Let me build on that idea. How do you become a blue blood program? How do you become a marquee program? You win. Like this idea that stars sell in sports. This is when the owners were lying on Capitol Hill, right? Like, oh, we need stars to sell tickets. And no, you need winning teams. I'm talking about baseball now. You need winning teams to sell tickets. Winning sells. And so eventually,
not
and
always,
it's not just
Max.
But it's not just in one season. It's if you can build a sustainable program that makes runs every year, that wins a lot of games every year, they become the kind of team and the kind of program. They develop the kind of characters you're talking about.
Now, Max, I didn't want to interrupt you because I wanted you on camera solo because I want everybody to see that damn haircut you're rocking. But let me get at you a quick second.
Stephen A. and I talking about
nothing's wrong with it. Nothing. You're looking good, Maximilian. You're looking good. But what I'm saying to you is this. Here's what I'm saying. Don't give that nonsense. Perfect example, perfect proof, guys, is the San Antonio Spurs. When the Lakers were playing in the finals, it was a tad bit different than when the San Antonio Spurs were in the finals. There's something to be said about marquee. Why are we acting on a national television show that's top rated, by the way? Why are we acting like we don't know this?
No, because it doesn't always have to be marquee versus marquee. David versus Goliath.
My job
point guard. Here we go.
All right, point guard. And Stephen A. set me up perfectly because we got to talk about the Spurs. Kawhi Leonard, Seth, by the way, appreciate you being here today with us. Kawhi Leonard was reportedly confronted by his teammates. We debate why it had to come to this. And 13 teams showed up to watch Johnny Manziel throw at San Diego's Pro Day. The guys are going to tell you why this is shocking, and it's probably not the reason you're thinking. Stay tuned.
Max Kellerman, did you know that our show can now be streamed on demand on the ESPN app? Now our fans can watch you lose to me whenever and wherever they want. Because we aren't just on TVs anymore. You better bring your A game.
I always bring my A game. It's you I'm worried about. Now when you say something blasphemous, Stephen A., fans can watch the full thing.